Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I had to get the Dortmund shirt on for this one. Today we're going to be talking about another man who's been linked with the Celtic job. As we get a new name every 3 days at this point, you know, we may as well try and go through them. We're going to be talking about Lucien Favre, the former Borussia Dortmund manager. Stephen McGowan of the Daily Mail has reported that there is apparent interest there. There's a lot to talk about. If you don't know much about Favre, I will try my best to give some information. But let's get into it all after the intro. Right then, before we go any further with this video, I just want to quickly say that I think that the substance behind this story isn't as convincing as perhaps other rumours and other things that have been going around. You know, I think there's more chance of Roy Keane becoming manager. Eddie Howe looks as though it might be getting closer. Even the likes of Thierry Henry, I think there's guys like that who've got more of a chance of getting the Celtic job than Lucien Favre. The Daily Mail published an article this morning talking about that he was interested in the Celtic job, but once you do actually read into it, it's kind of like, oh, his representatives failed to give comment on it on Monday if he would be interested in the Celtic job. So I don't quite know if there's anything else being said or something that's not in that article that's there that has linked Favre with the job. I just want to get that off my chest straight away and say that before we go any further. However, Lucien Favre is a name who I kind of, on a couple of streams over the past month or so, suggested the name forward to my friends as well in the chat. I suggested the name. As a Dortmund man, I like Dortmund and I really liked Lucien Favre. I thought it would be quite an interesting and ambitious one if Celtic were to be interested. I thought there would be no chance whatsoever, but I thought, you know, maybe it's worth putting the name forward. Maybe it's, you know, somebody we can look at. But not one that I ever thought in a million years would be a serious candidate for Celtic. I thought it would be a bit pie in the sky. But this story's broke today and it's brought a bit more light to the situation. So let's talk about the realistic chances of it happening. Let's talk a bit about Lucien Favre. For those who don't watch any of the Bundesliga or German football or know anything about him from his past jobs as well, then I'll try and give some insight to talk about how I think he would be a brilliant candidate for this job. I think that as time moves on now, I've been saying since November on this channel, I want Eddie Howe to be manager. That's who I want. That's my first choice. Eddie Howe is a guy that I'll be backing the whole way to get the job. And over the past couple of days, the stories coming out, the rumours that we've heard and all this about Eddie Howe has made it look as though it might be more likely it will be him. The odds would suggest that as well. The odds are pretty low right now. It looks as though he is the one leading the race. But Lucien Favre is someone who I think that if I had to pick between the two, he would make it a very tough decision. A manager who we'd be very lucky to have, I think incredibly lucky to have, and someone whose stock in the game is kind of like Eddie Howe. 2 years ago, never a million years would he have been Celtic manager, and now that he's even in the conversation is a bit kind of bewildering, to say the least. So between him and Eddie Howe, I mean, I would love any of the two of them. I think Eddie Howe is far more realistic, but we may as well talk about it. Also, in the future, when I move on and YouTube becomes like full time, I don't know why I'm throwing this in, but I was just thinking there, like I want to be able to like throw graphics and stats and such up on the screen just to make it a bit more enjoyable and a bit more engaging. I think that would help with this sort of video, especially because everything that I kind of know and have learned about Favre over the last 2-3 years, I can't quite get out in 10 minutes, but if I had stuff on screen, aids on screen, that would probably help. So in the future, I will try my best, but when you've got college and then work kind of in between, like at both sides of making a video, it makes it rather difficult, so my apologies for that. Lucien Favre has been linked with a couple of jobs now. I think Lyon was one that he was favourite for a while, but now that's turned out to be going another way. A current coach at Lyon is perhaps now the favourite to get that job. I think he was also linked with the Bayer Leverkusen job too over in Germany, but both of those jobs have been kind of taken if reports are to be believed. I think that Wolf was given the job at Leverkusen off the top of my head, if I'm thinking correctly. Yeah, Hans Wolf was given the Leverkusen job on an interim basis. That might go forward, and Lyon look as though they've decided that their main man's going to be a current coach there. So Favre is still in that kind of nether realm just now of not having a job and no jobs really opening up for him. So Celtic is an opportunity, and it's one that I think we should explore. You know, Celtic should be doing everything in their power to speak to the best candidates, the best guys in the game, and Lucien Favre is certainly up there, and this is why. So of course Lucien Favre is a man who's managed a few top teams in European football, Swiss-born manager. He's managed, of course, most recently Borussia Dortmund, as we've mentioned. He's managed Nice over in France, at one point Borussia Mönchengladbach manager as well. In fact, he was Gladbach manager back when they were going through quite a successful spell with the likes of Marco Reus at their team. He's someone who Dortmund I really liked, and I was sad to see get the chop. It was about time. I think it was his sacking from Dortmund was more out of just things getting a bit stagnant, and things not going his way domestically, not quite the same levels they were the years prior. It just got to that point where Dortmund were kind of forced to make the change. They had to make the change for the sake of the club. Celtic, we got a bit stagnant after winning for years. I don't think that Dortmund's was down more to tactical naivety like it was with Neil Lennon here. It was more towards the team being a bit worn out and perhaps maybe the tactics being a bit too intense for the team, and they're playing so much football, and the fact that they're playing at such a high level too against the likes of Bayern Munich trying to compete for that league title. I think it was more down to that rather than the failings of Lucien Favre. I was really sad to see him go, and I was a big fan of the football that he established over at the Westfalenstadion over the past 3 years. It was very entertaining, and it's something that at Celtic I would welcome with open arms. Now of course I'll quickly mention that the risk of appointing any manager is as big as the next guy. Appointing Eddie Howe is a risk, appointing Lucien Favre is a risk, appointing Wicky's. We never know who's going to succeed and who's going to fail. I don't think there's ever a guarantee that someone's going to come with instant success. But with Lucien Favre, he's so established in the game, and he's got such a kind of... What I like about him, compared to the likes of what we had with Neil Lennon, is consistency. Lucien Favre was very consistent over the course of a full season. And yes, he kind of changed and he had to adapt as time went on, season after season at Borussia Dortmund, especially with the way players came in and left as well. The likes, he had Haaland come in the last season or so. He once had Paco Alcacer, all these things that change. He was adaptable to that, but over the course of a season he was very consistent with his team selection and his tactics. I think that in his first season at Borussia Dortmund he registered something around 23 used players, which was one of the smallest in the league, and compared to about the 26 or 27 to his predecessors of Peter Bush and Peter Stöger. A very good manager with very consistent ideas, which is what Celtic need. Over the course of this season, how many times did we complain about changing team selection and changing tactics? Lucien Favre would bring back something of a base for us to work off and build on every week. In terms of how the football works, he came into Dortmund with a big task, and that was to sort them out. He had to sort out Dortmund because they were so poor defensively, they were leaking goals out, and they started doing that a bit more towards the end of Favre's tenure. I'd recognise that, but when he first came in, he done at Dortmund what needs to be done at Celtic. He tightened up the defence and he got them scoring more goals. He done both. He didn't do one or the other. He done both. The defence was so much better after taking the reins of Peter Stöger's team. And going forward, they were scoring goals for fun. Paco Alcacer was efficient, both starting and off the bench. He revitalised players like Marco Reus. Marco Reus, who I've loved throughout his entire career, one of my favourite players in world football, was getting kind of... It was getting tedious watching him. It looked as though he was maybe on the way out. Lucien Favre comes in and revitalises his career, and he'd done that with so many players, and the way that he got him playing in the midfield was key to how they scored goals. And Celtic need that. We need that creative outlet. We need to go forward with a bit of with a confidence, but also capitalising on teams who are let. So the way I put it is, when he was at Dortmund and teams were trying to attack against them, the way that they set up made them have to play, and this is what Celtic have to deal with, long balls. Teams were having to play long balls. Dortmund would cut out the passing channels, and that would allow Dortmund to go and take the ball, possession based, good areas of the park, build their way up the park and score goals, while also being very tight because of how they set up in the midfield and the defence. That is what Celtic sort of need, and that's the kind of thing that Lucien Favre brings. A very tight defensive set-up with good attacking outlets, players coming in from different areas of the park. He's very expendable, but as I said, very consistent in what he'll do over the course of a season. Even when they were failing, and even when it got to the kind of the worst of the worst for Favre towards the end of his Dortmund tenure, they were still attacking very successfully on the way that they kind of stopped the opposition and defended the opposition. They would attack successfully on that, and that's how Haaland was scoring so many goals. Very tactically aware, Favre. and working under a setup which he'll have to become very familiar with if he was to come to Celtic. He worked with a very good sporting director in Michael Zorc over in Dortmund, soon to be Sebastian Kehl, but he worked with him for 2-3 years, and that's the kind of setup that he's used to. He's used to working with a director of football or a sporting director. He's a head coach, he's not a manager, and that's what you'd be getting with him at Celtic, because he'd be coming in to work with, whether it be Fergal Harkin or someone else, he'd be coming in to work in that setup, and that's the kind of manager we need, or the kind of head coach we need, I must say. We don't need someone like a Roy Keane, who I think would be very keen to work, if you pardon the pun, very keen to work on his own and do things his way. He'll be coming in to work with someone who is above him, overlooking a lot of the different sectors of the football club, but while also just having the main say in how tactically they play and how they play in a match day. And that's what Favre became used to, and it's what Favre has been used to perhaps in the majority of his managerial career, and what would be working very successfully, I think, for Celtic is someone who comes in with a reputation, I think with a kind of similar to Eddie Howe in the sense that he'll be able to attract players, and he'll be able to attract players of a European base as well, fluent in German, fluent in French, I think he might be fluent in Italian as well, and of course being able to speak English, someone who'll be able to attract a lot of players. And just someone I think Celtic should explore the possibility of. Now, look, I don't think it will happen. I think it's very, as I said at the start of the video, pie in the sky. But someone who I would very much enjoy seeing at Celtic. I would love to see Lucien Favre at Celtic. I think that this season, as much as it didn't go well for him domestically, look, he got Borussia Dortmund, I think, top of the group in the Champions League, last 16 anyway, and look, for us domestically, as much as we have fell apart, someone who revitalised Dortmund from a very, very, very precarious position a few years ago, and perhaps just didn't get the... It just took too long to go and get... They should have had the league title a couple of times and they collapsed after the season. But someone who I'm a big fan of and I think has all the tools in front of him at Celtic to succeed. So, explore the possibility, Celtic. And that does it. Look, I'm rooting and I still think it will be Eddie Howe, but I thought I may as well make this video in regards to the Mail article that came out today. Look, I think it is once again pie in the sky, but who cares? If you've enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe. If it's been any use of you, make sure to let me know in the comments, share it out, and of course, main thing, subscribe. We're in 25.2k now, let's get to 26. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching, I'll see you all next time.